Yeah, look at them on the computer.
Had to move it so to make sure your head's not in it. But
That's, ain't no
I
worries.
had to adjust for this, the chief said, so.
Are we good? We ready?
Yeah.
Call this meeting of the Madison Select Board to order at 6:30 PM on Monday, November 14th, 2022. Please join me in saluting the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the record, all selectmen are present. Consent agenda warrant number 13, 10/24, 2022, number 14, 10/24, 2022. Payroll register number 42, 10/20, 2022, number 43, 10/27, 2022, and number 44, 11/3, 2022.
Make a motion, we accept the AP warrant and the payroll registers.
1 second.
A motion and a second to accept the warrant and payroll register as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. An application to a license game of chance for the VFW Post 7865, Cribbage in Texas Hold'em. We can probably do all these together, right? Application for on-premise liquor license for VFW Post 7865, a renewal for 2023. An application for catering permit for VFW Post 7865, renewal for 2023.
Make a motion, we fill out their application. Okay, their application.
Grant the application, okay. All right.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to grant the application for a license for a game of chance on premises liquor sales and catering permit for VFW Post 7865. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
So there's a total of 4 packets here, and they're all turned to your signature pages.
Okay. All right. Acceptance of the meeting minutes from October 24th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes of October 24th, 2022. Any questions?
The only thing I'll note there is I need to change the time of the meeting adjourned. It reads 8:50, it should be 7:50. So,
All right, so the motion and the second with the change. All those in favor? All in favor, motion carries. Old business, Mr. Moody?
None, sir.
Mr. Manta?
No.
Mrs. Webb?
I have nothing to.
Mr. Gopian?
I had one, well, I don't know if it's from the previous meeting, I can talk about this. You want this under selectmen's concerns, or you want it now?
I don't. No, let me read it first.
Okay.
All right, so seeing none, I'll stop doing this and continue on. We'll get that one going. All right, let's see, items of communication, Mr. Town Manager?
all right, pertinent to this facility over here, we received some funding from a FEMA grant to install an emergency generator here at the East Madison Fire Station. Right now, the only generator we have in town is at the town office and fire department. So the FEMA grant will cover half the cost of installing one. I believe the process is in the works. Excellent.
What are we talking about? Money.
I believe the total cost is about under $12,000, and match will be $6,000.
Okay.
In your packets, I had put a letter that I sent to the superintendent, thanking them for some students that they sent out to a volunteer window insert build that I happen to be a part of. And these are great students. They were junior high and high school students that worked very well with the volunteer group, and so I wanted to make sure the superintendent knew that I appreciated them being there. There's some color photos on the desk that you've been looking at, and I also sent this out via email today. John Harlow with the West Rochester Arts Council They've erected 2 Native American murals on the side of the Old Point School, and they depict the Wabanaki origin stories that are very important to our region. I want to give you an update on staffing at the town office. Since the last time the board met, we have hired a full-time deputy clerk and a part-time worker to help on the counter. I did interview a promising candidate for a bookkeeper, but after we went back and forth discussing it, she decided to stay at her current employer. So right now, the bookkeeping work is being done by committee. Trish Smith is handling the accounts payable, Deb Chandler is handling payroll, and I'm handling all the grant management that the bookkeeper used to do. So we will continue to walk through that process as best as we can. Last thing I wanted to mention is have you thinking about the next board meeting on the 28th. Throughout this year, the board has been making several small edits to the town personnel policy. I would recommend that we start looking at that personnel policy on a wide scale and start doing that at the next meeting on the 28th, especially since we have a end of our collective bargaining agreement coming up in June with the highway contract. I know some of the board has mentioned that they want to make sure that it's consistent between both of those documents. So I would recommend that we start doing that at the next meeting on the 28th. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, new business. Number 1, department head reports. The sheriff is here. If you would like to enlighten us.
So hiring is still an issue. We had one gentleman that we put through most of the process. We had high hopes for him. He worked a few days. Didn't like the volume of calls, so it was a little overwhelming, and it got done. We have some external issues that are problems. I mean, you have state police have redefined their mission, and we're handling a little over 15,000 calls of service a year now, and with their reorganization, it's going to increase our calls somewhere between 15 and 2,000 calls for service with the existing manpower. We're presently the lowest paid in the county of all of the departments, and to include Pittsfield, and that FOP contract comes due July 1st. So I'm hoping that I anticipate they'll do well in their contract, just to stay up with what's the price of a police officer right now in Central Maine, and I think that will increase our ability to hire people.
I know I've talked about the state police before, but that was nothing that was talked about before it happened. It just happened, or there's nothing we can do about that.
No, there's nothing you can do about that.
No nasty letters we can send.
No nasty letters. They've already divided up into, I believe we're part of a central field, which used to be C and D. They already have a lieutenant to look over both what used to be C and D. The specialty teams have gone more to full time, and they now have an overnight shift with the existing head count that they've had, so you cannot take on or make more shifts with the same amount of people and cover the same amount of work. So
I just wanted to remind the board that when we entered into the contract for this year for services, we were changing the model to assigning deputies to Madison's schedule. Back in June or July, you informed the board that you didn't have enough people in place to do that, and it doesn't sound like that's changed.
Well, other than we have chiefs instructed the sergeant, it's not a if you feel like it. We do, unless it was an emergency, we sign someone right to Madison out of the existing workforce that we have. For those days that we don't, we are keeping track of that, and we'll report that out to
right now, we have been filling every one of those shifts.
Okay, that's good to know, that was one of my questions. Because what's interesting is when you read the report that was put out today, you see deputy names that are familiar and some that aren't familiar, so I'm assuming we're getting a mix of people that are covering the area.
You know, we're covering every shift right now.
Excellent.
Any questions of the sheriff? Mr. Gopin?
Yes, how do you go about recruiting?
Well, we do it through a myriad of ways. We do it through Indeed.
We use Indeed.com, and we also have a recruiter who goes to all job fairs, colleges, and actively recruiting on a regular basis. So she camps out at some of these places, passes out applications, business cards, and stuff like that. And, you know, trying to enlist people. But every police agency is doing the same thing. You know, they're all, they never used to do that kind of stuff. We never did.
The problem, one of the problem, not the problem, but it has many layers. But one of the problems is that, you know, we're starting a new deputy out at a little over $20 an hour. I think
Waterville's top pay right now for a police officer is 36.
an hour to start.
So what's happening is,
Starting?
yes. So what's happening, no, top pay
Top
every 6
pay,
years.
okay.
And so what's happening is we're losing deputies. They're applying. There's about 300 job openings throughout the state of Maine right now. Back when him and I were in the state police, they had 0. Now they got 300 openings. So all these departments are actively recruiting other departments' officers. And
They're actually calling our officers and saying, why don't you come?
they're sending them emails, calling them on the telephone, saying, just come talk to me, you know. Things that they're offering now that they've never done before, like in the state police, for example, they sent out a brochure to all my deputies saying, years ago, when you started out in the state police, you started out at the bottom of the pay scale. Now, if you have 10 years experience, they'll start you out at 10 years on the top of the pay scale, because after 8 years, you're on the top of the pay scale. So they'll start them on top pay. They'll transfer the retirement in there. If you work with us for 10 years and you go to another agency, they'll take that 10 years with you. So, you know, they're offering things that they never used to offer. Just to recruit, Waterville Police Department is a critical staffing. They've lost half their officers. They just negotiated a new contract, threw a lot of money at it, and now they're just calling every agency, putting us on notice, letting us know that we do pay a lot more than you do, and we are recruiting your people.
And if you go to these chiefs meetings, they don't even hide it anymore. They say, we're coming after your people.
Wow.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is because I thought maybe a good place for you to recruit is talk to the recruiters in the service. So somebody's getting down the service, that would be a good step for them because they're used to rank. And
We just went to one of those recruiting events. It was in Augusta, the Augusta Armory, where we had 2 recruiters there from the sheriff's office recruiting, and like I said, everybody was recruiting.
But like the chief said, I mean, statewide, that we're down 300 officers. And so it's as you try to fill your positions, it's no different from us. And they've made it so that it's not, I still believe it's a quite honorable profession, but now they've made it so that you're kind of a bad guy to be a cop. And they've made it, the laws have made it more not like it was. And not that things should not evolve, but it's not a profession that young people are clamoring to. They don't want to work nights, weekends, holidays, get spit on. So it's a challenge. But I'm optimistic that when they finally do get whatever, and I don't even know what that is, but when that comes to fruition, that for those people that want to come to the sheriff's office, it'll be much more enticing. Because you do have a take-home car, and you do work, you start your day from your home, so, I mean, that's a plus.
Sony.
Being that your purse strings come through the commissioner's office, how receptive or what kind of support are they giving you, or how are they supporting you as far as you're talking about a low-paid department? How are they going to help you address bringing that low-paid department up to something that's adequate to keep people?
And that's a good question. So every board is different. This last election, we'll have 3 new board members. I think they'll, and I don't want to say against, not pro-law enforcement, because that would be an unfair statement, but more understanding what the job market is. And that's why I optimistically say that we might do all right. And once we get that pay up, we'll attract the shallow pool that it is. We'll attract it.
And unless you do, you're wasting your time. If you don't have compatible pay, you're wasting your time.
That's a true statement. That's a true statement. You know, when you enlisted, I enlisted, the chief enlisted in the state police, would have paid them to go to work. I mean, we started off at $6 an hour in the academy. But now, and the chief will tell you that, because the chief does the interviews of all our new prospective candidates, and they'll ask him, what do you pay? What benefits do you have? How can you make it good for us?
I've offered people jobs and they said they'll get back to me in a week. And you know, they'll take it. You know, it's never used to, never used to be like that before.
And then they'll call the chief and say, we got it from another department more money.
All right, any other questions?
You
Anything else,
indeed.
Tim? Well, keep trying.
No, I apologize for your and I don't want to make it all sound, I mean, the people that we do have, they do a good job, and they're working hard with the volume of calls that we have. And again, I am going to be optimistic that when, again, there is some settlement in this contract, it will bring candidates. And we have changed our philosophy. We don't hire people just because sometimes my philosophy is that if you're hiring someone just because, you're going to end up with problems. So we still screen them pretty well before we allow them off on the job. But right now, it's that pay that's going against us.
Thank you. Any other questions? You all set up? All right, thank you. I don't have.
I just had a couple other things under department head reports.
Well, I don't have a fire department report, so.
No, and that's okay. Donnie has been
Okay.
out sick,
Yeah.
but that's why Deputy Chief Bosworth is here.
All right, welcome.
I just wanted to touch base on the election and thank Trish Smith and all of her deputy election clerks for an excellent job at the polls last week. We had a total of 1,950 people vote, and 500 of them, give or take, were absentee, but that means almost 1,500 people came through the polls on Tuesday without incident, and so good job by them. Just wanted to note that all the paving projects that were scheduled and budgeted for this year have been completed. That includes Russell Road, Lower Mills, Nickel Street, Abenaki Road, and what you walked in on tonight, the parking lot here at the East Madison Fire Station. We were very fortunate to have favorable weather to be able to pave this late into the season.
Good. All right, anything else? Okay, I was presented this morning, so I'm going to read it. To the Select Board and residents of the town of Madison, regretfully, after 27 years of employment in the town of Madison, I, Jeffrey Wright, as acting road commissioner for the town, am hereby tendering my resignation for this position due to ongoing and unresolved matters. I have truly enjoyed working with the residents of the town of Madison and until recently the staff within the town. After careful consideration, I have determined that I'm no longer able to perform the duties of my position. Please accept this as my formal notice of resignation. My last day will be November 28, 2022. Respectfully, Jeffrey Wright, Road Commissioner. So, we have to have some direction here, I guess, on where we're going with that. Mr. Gopi.
Yeah, why is anybody resigning?
I can't really answer that question because they're the ones that are resigning. I'm not firing anybody, and I'm not forcing anybody to resign. So really, that's a question for them.
So we will put it in the lap of Tim, I guess, to figure out what we're doing with that. We'll put it to the town clerk, I believe, because it's an election issue. So I believe it probably is the next election, we would take nominations and elect somebody. But we have to have somebody in the interim to get us to where we need to be. Mr. Gopian.
How are you gonna do that if that position's elected?
No, you have to cover from the period of time from now until it's elected. And the former town clerk can help me if I'm wrong. No, she's not gonna say a word.
No, you're.
Right, so we have to fill in from now until the time of election.
All the
So,
people we have up at town garage now?
well, and not necessarily, I mean, we certainly could go out and look for somebody.
So the status of the crew at the town garage is there's 5 full-time workers there now. 3 of them have been there a number of years and know their routes very well. There's 2 new people there that will have to be assigned new routes. We have not filled the position of foreman, and now we'll be going into the winter without a foreman and without a road commissioner. So one of my first acts is to go through some of the applications that were put in, but not followed through with for whatever reason, and see if there's candidates out there to fill at least the foreman position for the winter to guide the crew. There are members of that team up there that have been foremen before. I'll have conversations with them. I had a very brief conversation with Jeff Wright today, and we really didn't talk much about future plans. I wanted to make sure what he was doing for the next 2 weeks, and he's going to be on the job every day, without exception. And but as far as finding replacements for road commissioner, I believe that will probably be a longer process. And the pool, Skowhegan just went through the same thing over the summer. And because of the nature of the job where no matter what you do, that person still has to take out papers and be elected in June of next year. And in Skowhegan's case, that narrowed the pool down. They only got 2 applicants for road commissioner, and they chose the best out of the 2 that they got. But both of those applicants knew that going forward they were going to have to get elected. So I think my first order of business is try to find a foreman that is capable of providing some leadership there.
Mr. Moody.
We just talked about the number of years that some of those people have there in the highway department. Is it necessary that we go out and find and bring somebody else in new when this is an interim position and an interim person that's working up there can carry through until the next election?
I certainly think that the town manager is going to speak with those who are there and see the person who was maybe the foreman before, if they are interested in that, and see what he can do with that. I don't know if you can just assign somebody that job if they don't want it.
No, you can't, I know
Right.
that.
So I mean, I think we got to give them a little bit of time to talk to the people who are working up there and to see if there's anybody there that
I
isn't.
understand
Yeah.
that, Chairman, and the only thing I'm asking is that, can we find somebody up there to sit in their interim?
Probably could.
And so just for clarification, Mr. Moody, you're talking about an interim road commissioner or
Yes.
an interim foreman?
Either or,
Okay. I think
either or.
Yeah.
Somebody to run the highway department, whether it be the road commissioner or a foreman. I'm sure there's somebody up there that can fill that bill up there in an interim period.
So I think that's conversations we'll certainly have.
All right. Any other questions? Well, I think moving forward, the town manager will keep us updated on what's going on, and we've got a couple of weeks here anyways with Jeff still there, so. All right, number 2, discuss bids for 1990 fire truck.
So I, during the course of October, sent out a request for bids on the 1990 tanker pumper truck. I sent a notice to every fire chief in Somerset County. I received very little interest, only 1 or 2 emails back, and no bids on that from firefighters or fire departments. We did receive 2 bids from local farmers, and I can only assume that they're using it because it's a 3,000-gallon tanker truck. They're using it for irrigation and other properties on their farms. Nonetheless, I thought the bids that we got from Payne Farm and Bosworth Farm were both very competitive. I would like to recommend that the board consider accepting the bid from the Bosworth Farm.
Make a motion, we accept.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the bid for the 1990 Volvo fire truck from Bosworth Farm for $15,028.
The only thing I would add to that is just a clarification from the board as to where these monies go. If there's no clarification, they go right back to the general fund. It has been our past practice that when the highway department and fire department sell equipment, the monies from that sale go back to that department for other equipment purchases. That's why I highlighted that line in your packets there. As you can see, the fire equipment line currently has $540 in it. So if it would please the board, I would recommend that the funds from this sale go back into that account, which allow Dawn and Dan the flexibility to purchase turnout gear and any other necessary equipment they may need, and that saves money to the taxpayers.
Tim, if I could,
Yeah.
just with that too, with the gear, we've been purchasing extrication / rescue gear. We've been getting it through MMA grants over the last several years. We could get 2 sets of gear, and that's how we would fulfill every year on fulfilling 2 sets of gear. We was not accepted that this year. And we also go through the forestry department to get a 50-50 match on some other gear for forest fires. We were accepted that, however, the gear did not get here in time because of the delay of products worldwide, so far out that I don't believe we did get 1 set we can use. The other set should be shipped, but we hear on a daily basis now that it's shipped. It never seems to get here. So we missed out on 2, raising fees to try to supplement that. So the rescue gear has been very good because it allows our turnout gears to last longer. It makes our firefighters safer in the heat because it doesn't have all the thermal barriers, things of that nature that we need for extricating, for forest fires, things of that nature. So that's what we're kind of focusing on, and that would help us tremendously in keeping our firefighters safe in that manner without heating them up. And just like the sheriff said, we're struggling with the lack of personnel too, and our personnel are doing more and more and more each and every day. So we just don't want to push them to the limits where we're going to hurt somebody. So.
Mr. Moody.
I'll make that a motion. With
Okay,
that,
hold on, wait. Can we add it to the motion we have?
Amend it.
Just amend the motion to,
Okay,
is that,
then.
to say to,
I'll amend the motion to accept the Bosworth bid and direct it to the, what was the account?
fire equipment,
Fire
EMA,
equipment account.
340.
45 times.
there you go.
You okay with that, Mr. Gopi?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second to award the bid to Bosworth Farm for $15,028 and put the money in account 340-14 fire equipment EMA. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, thank you, Dan. Number 3, discuss use of ATVs on town roads.
Just to be clear, I added this to the agenda as a follow-up to the meeting that some of the board members and other members of the public attended over the Madison Selectmen meeting last Wednesday. This is not an action item that I'm looking for any action tonight, but maybe just a further discussion. Some of you heard Brian Bronson from the State Department of Conservation talk about the rail-to-trail program and how basically what they've accomplished this year allows them to maybe open up the trail from Madison, Anson north for snowmobiles, and then south from Norwalk down to Oakland. But that span between Norwalk and Madison won't be usable until the work is completed next year. So the straight shot all the way through is not complete yet. But the question was addressed, and I think fairly well, about how do you allow individuals that have ATVs specifically, how do you allow them access from where they live, where they get off, where they park, onto the trail, and then access off the trail. If you're thinking Madison in particular, Madison has a very small amount. We only have 3 miles of trail, and there's only a handful of houses that are anywhere near that trail. But it also crosses Main Street, and up Main Street is 2 places where they can get some of their necessary supplies, such as gas and food and that sort of thing. From the crossing near the mill up to Irving or up to Big Apple is right around that 1,500-foot, state rule that allows them to utilize that space. So I think just looking at that, I don't know if there's any urgency that the town needs to take action to open up other routes. But of course the questions are, what do the users want? So I'm glad Jeff Ireland could be here. He represents the Madison ATV Club and has been keeping a close eye on this for quite a long time. So I don't know if you had anything to add there, Jeff.
Well, I think I'd like to reiterate some of the stuff that Brian had talked about in Anson at the last meeting. There's a contingency of people that would like to open up everything, and a couple of things happen with that. One is the expense, because we're obliged by Maine law to sign anything that's available to ATVs as an ATV access route, and it's at the expense of not the ATV program, but at the expense of the club, at the expense of the business owners or the Chamber of Commerce, who wants to take care of that. And there's also differentiation between state aid and state highways and town-controlled roads.
So you mean open up all the roads in town? So
Well, there are some people that want to do that. I'm not really in favor of that necessarily. Tim had kind of hinted at, and I'd like to expand on that a little bit. If there was a situation, and again, this isn't an action event tonight, but for example, if people wanted to be able to, if the town fathers and the townspeople wanted people with ATVs to be able to get to the main trail, there would be ways you could open up so people on the surface streets in town could be able to get there without opening up the state highways because of the 1,500-foot rule. So in other words, if you opened up, as an example, and I live in that neighborhood, so I'm impacted by this as well, for better or worse, but if you open up Maple Street and Madison Avenue, Western Avenue, basically everybody in the in-town area on that end of town could get there because that would be within 1,500 feet. So you wouldn't need to sign every street necessarily. As the club trail master and VP, one of my concerns is the expense of some of these things. Some towns have opted to do this. The state law is a little bit ambiguous in that the routes have to be conspicuously posted, but there's not a clear definition of what conspicuous is. I mean, one person might say a sign every mile is conspicuous. One person might say 2 signs every 1/10 of a mile is conspicuous. State aid roads and state highway roads have to be posted by Maine DOT, and that's at the expense of $150 per sign. Is between the engineering, the sign crew getting out to install the sign, etc. The local signs on the local streets that are not state aid or not state highways can be done, and I understand the highway department is severely understaffed now, I respect that, but in my experience with other clubs has been done either by the clubs, by the highway departments, or some combination of both. We're able to buy these signs for $14 a piece from White Sign in Stillwater, which is I think probably where the town has provided some of their signs in the past and where the state buys a lot of their signs. So I think it's important going forward. A big reason I've been pushing on this for nearly 10 years, this whole rail trail thing has been, I've been involved with it for a long time, is partly as an effort to, a way to stimulate the economy as people coming through town. So people will be traveling through, and I don't think it's going to be the save-all for the town, but if people are able to get to amenities such as gas and stop at Rain's because they see rain clouds and go buy rain gear, or they want to stop for food or whatever. I mean, it's tough to get food in Madison right now on a Monday. Your options are pretty much Subway, which, I like Subway, but I don't want to eat it, every day. So I think that this has the potential to be good for the town. But again, I'm not sure that we want the Wild West with the ATVs of them running the streets 24 hours a day, going everywhere and through major intersections and things like that. So I think there needs to be some, eventually a committee formed or something like that can discuss this, or the club can maybe discuss it and come back to you guys with some proposals in time.
Yes, one of the things after the meeting with Brian, we met him out in the parking lot, had a few words with him out there. And basically what they're trying to do is put a parking lot in every town along the way. And he was thinking about the state maybe buying some piece of land down by the church, the Kennebec Street side, and make that into a parking lot where people could take their trucks down and unload them down there. And then then I had a concern about the sanitation. How's this dust and dirt? It's gonna fly all over the place in there. They're within that 200 feet of it. And he was talking, and we got talking about different ways to do this with signs, once again, stop signs. You're gonna have to have them there, because of those 18-wheelers coming in. You're gonna have to have them, they're gonna have to do something about that fence they have up the mill, the lab, because you can't see.
Visibility is poor.
Right, yeah. And so that's another thing, taking that out, like you said, and maybe stop signs there too.
I'm sure there'll be signage
Right.
well in advance of the street crossings, and particularly the highway crossings, stop head signs, stop signs,
Right.
identifiers, so the people that are on the ATVs know what roads they're crossing, things like
Yeah.
that as well. We're pretty adept at proper signage that way.
Well, yeah, I think it was right. I think you need a committee to investigate this. Although it's only 3 miles, there's still quite a few. Once you get to the sanitation district and through, you got some houses on the other side and some places there. People should be checking on when you go across. You got the lobster place there and the bank. This is all going to be covered with dirt and dust with those ATVs. Unless you're going to keep it watered, which I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, I don't think the ATV is going to be spreading dirt and dust on the streets, but at the highway crossings, certainly.
Yeah.
And
But this is something for that committee to talk about.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to get into the nitty gritty of
No.
that. There's ways to mitigate dust and things of that as well.
Right,
so.
yeah.
Mr. Goby, am I hearing you're interested in being on the committee?
Well, I think it's just, I don't mind that.
So if
yeah.
we put something together, you could include Bob, Mr.
I was,
Cody.
something to think of in the future. I was approached by one of the businessmen, Jim Elias, who has Elias Monuments down there. And he really, because that track runs right behind his house. And he has no problem with snow machines and stuff, but what he does have a problem with is ATVs, because when they come, and they've already done it, when they come up that track, there is a boil of dust that comes all over his monuments. If he's out there with people, they're getting all dust. He asked if we would consider coming off that trail below his house and coming up the Father Isle Road back to the crossing right there. And I told him that I would bring it up to be considered, and when we narrow things down, then probably we could do something for him. I mean, he's a businessman, and
That'd be something we'd have to involve the Department of Conservation in, because it's technically their trail, so I mean,
Yeah. But, I mean, that is not a very heavy traffic use portion of the road. You have your slow signs, your 25 signs, and
my question to that would be, where exactly is the town line there? I mean, that would probably be a conversation with us,
Right at the end of the
town and
cemetery,
ours,
yeah.
I'm sure. but-
Right at the end of the cemetery, or the beginning. And the other one, Nodwalk.
right by the bridge, isn't it? Right by the bridge, past the cemetery?
No, it is,
No.
the town line is a cemetery.
Okay.
There's a road that MEW uses to go back to, it's right on the edge of
Yeah.
the cemetery.
Yeah.
That road is right on the
Okay,
town line.
And-
well, they could use that, whatever.
And Nodwalk already come out, I believe, saying that they can drive on their roads.
Some, but not all
Some roads,
roads.
yeah.
But, I mean, that one is so far away, it was something you'd have to talk to about the town manager.
I think I realize this is kind of a committee thing, I don't mean to drag this
Right,
out, but
yeah.
I just want to reassure that in my 30 years' experience in the industry, we've done a lot of work with dust mitigation. I mean, we work with, I used to be the trail master for the Bingham Club, which included about 9 towns, and we used to work with the town of Solon and MMA to purchase calcium chloride flakes at a discount, and we would literally calcium the trails in sensitive areas. So there's a lot of things that can be done to control the dust. So.
All right, so any other questions?
I would just add, so that the board kind of knows what direction to go in. If this committee does result in things that need to be taken and put into code or ordinance at town meeting, we currently have an ordinance regarding ATVs, chapter 405 in our ordinance code. It only prohibits people from using ATVs on land that they don't have permission from the landowner. So it's a pretty small ordinance, and I would certainly recommend that you target whatever you want to do to that ordinance and simply expand it to cover the things you want to cover.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, select board's concerns, Mr. Moody. Samantha?
Yes, if we ought to schedule a meeting for next Monday night for an evaluation of the town manager, whether he wants it in executive session or open session, that's up to him.
Oh, we usually do that in December.
We need it sooner than that.
The only thing I would say to that, and the reason I chuckle is not from what Mr. Manager says. If you're talking about Monday the 21st, I'm scheduled for a colonoscopy that afternoon. I will not be available.
Oh, come on.
We'll wait till
That's another day.
we'll wait till the 28th.
Okay.
Mrs. Glenn?
I'm fine.
Mr. Gilpin?
Yeah, I'm still concerned about all these people getting done. That's just my concern. Outside of that, that's, maybe we can bring that up at that meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
I have none. All right. Citizens' concerns. Citizens' concerns? Citizens. All right, seeing none, looking for a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.